Hi, I'm Valerie Englehart, and in this video I wanted to pull out my Kuretake Graphite Colors to paint a hardy hibiscus. It's been a while since I've painted a hibiscus, and I don't think I've ever painted one on this channel, which is really weird because I've painted a lot of these. Now, I just got back from a mini vacation, and one would think this time of year perhaps something a little more tropical, and the answer is no. I went further north, and it was cold for some of the time, and I was stupid and didn't bring a jacket. And so I got home and I wanted warm. So I decided to paint a hibiscus, yet with cool colors. So I don't know, maybe I have a complex. Anyway, I just like to pull out these colors sometimes, and that time was today. So I'm using they don't have names, they've got numbers. But anyway, I'm using the red, and then I'm using the purple to create some shadows. And the brushes that I'm using, I got as part of a set, and they're called Artigria Intuition. Basically, I just got some little cheapsy brushes, but they're nice and soft, and they've got good bounce back. They're synthetic. And now I'm going in and lifting. So timing is very important in watercolor. So notice how I lifted one petal and I got those lines, but I tried on the next one and nothing is happening. So I want to lift out some highlights, and to do that, I need the watercolor petal to be damp, not wet, because if it's wet and I lift something, then the surrounding water will just flood the area. And if it's just damp, I can lift the pigment, but if it's too dry, I don't get that lovely soft lift. So there's a lot of timing involved in watercolor. Sometimes that timing is patience. So over on this side, I'm painting the petal and I'm going around the stamen. But I don't want to leave any white gaps just because of the style I'm going for. So that stamen was pretty dry, and I carefully painted around it with the red. And right now, there's not a lot of contrast. It's difficult to see, but you need to trust the process. Oftentimes, things aren't going to look the way that you want them to look when you just start. In fact, rarely do things look the way I want them to look when I just start. So I'm going in, I'm using the graphite yellow to paint the stem where some leaves are going to be. And I don't want everything to be one note, which is a great thing about watercolor because you put things like two colors together while things are wet and they mix and merge, but not too much. So like you notice my petals, the endings of the petals are a darker color because I put a darker pigment there and it moved to create a smooth transition, but it didn't become monotonous or monochromatic. All right, so I did my yellow. Now I'm gonna go in with green. I really like this green. And I did let it touch the petal a bit, and the petals are still technically wet, but not so wet that it's going to flood the leaf. Again, timing is everything, but it is wet enough that there is a slight bleed, a slight transition, which is fine. I like it. I'm gonna go in and paint in some veins, which will disperse and dissipate, but it will create some nice depth and shadow. So later when I do put in hard lines, those soft lines there will act as a guide, but will also look like the shadow that often is on either side of a vein. And here's where we have a complementary color scheme. The red and the green, complementary colors, they look great next to each other, but it doesn't look like Christmas. One thing, back when I was early in art and fashion, was being careful of reds and greens because they have the tendency, if you're not careful, to look Christmassy. And so one way to get around that is having moodier colors or earthier colors, or to use a red that's more pink. Once again lifting, and I'm lifting in segments because I like creating visual texture in any way that I can. These graphite colors are heavy and I wouldn't say they're granulating, but they do create a visual texture in and of themselves, and not every leaf needs to be green. After all, this graphite yellow almost looks like green gold. So just put in the yellow, drop in some green, let that fuse and blend, and you have a leaf. And it keeps things interesting. All right, painting in another leaf where it's going to touch another leaf and the petal. The petal at this point should be dry enough that I won't have any back runs or bleeding, but I just put that one leaf in, so it will fuse and merge, which is great. That's what I want. And going in, popping in a thicker application of color to create some shadow. And then lifting. Always keep a towel or paper towel handy. It really helps for controlling the moisture level of your brush. For example, if you like to paint wet into wet, it can help prevent unwanted watercolor blooms. But I mostly use it for, well, making my brush drier so I can lift. Now here's an interestingly shaped brush, and I'm using it for texture. All right, going in, and now another leaf. So this entire painting was done in one go. So it allowed me to paint a section, let it dry, and then just keep moving about the painting so that I never had to walk away and be impatient. Which usually for me, waiting for something to dry is the part that drives me crazy, but for this particular piece, it was great because this watercolor dried quickly enough that I didn't get frustrated, but was able to dry naturally, and I could just work on a segment at a time. I have sped this up. It is at a little over 200%, but this painting all in all took me just over half an hour. So I didn't need to carve out a major chunk of my day. 30 minutes, here's a painting. And even the paper, this is going to be like 7 by 11. And it's done on the back of another painting. I use up my paper. Art supplies can be expensive. So unless a piece of mine is going to be framed, or I just really, really like it, I'll keep my failed paintings. I'll keep my studies and experiments, and then paint on the back because some of the paper I have is of a good enough quality that I can paint on the back and have a great result. If I do have a paper that doesn't do great results when you flip it on the back, then I'll use those for testing colors, for creating like these paper palettes where I'll squeeze out my tube paints. So I never want anything to go to waste. All right, those petals are dry. I've pulled out a smaller round brush going into that purple, and I'm just making some stripes. And I'm varying the pressure of my brush, and then I don't like how stark it is, so I'm going in with the red and adding more of it to the end of the petals. My reasoning? I wanted the petals to look like they were folding backwards a bit more, and just personal preference. Great thing about art, we could all take the same reference image, even have the same colors, and we'll each have different paintings because there are different ways we like to apply things. And goodness, if we take our different climates into consideration, painting in the desert with watercolor is very different than painting in a temperate rainforest or by the sea. Even though I paint indoors, because I live in the famously rainy Seattle area, my watercolor stays wet longer than if I lived in Arizona. Why'd I pick Arizona? Because a lot of Washingtonians, is that how you say people from Washington? Anyway, a lot of them go down to Arizona when they're snowbirds. All right, going in now, painting some of the veins on the leaves because they've dried enough that I can do so. And because those Kuretake paints don't have an included palette for mixing or diluting the paint, I do have a white ceramic. It's a Corel plate. It was like super cheap at Target years ago, and it's great. It does exactly what I need it to do, and then because this is watercolor, it just rinses off when I'm done. And this is another illustration that I think, once scanned in and maybe copy and pasted a few times, would make a really pretty pattern. And so I'm going to try that. I'm going to see if this makes a pretty pattern. So if you're someone who likes to paint with watercolor and wants to turn your motifs into a pattern, the way that this painting is coming out is ideal for such a technique. So what do I mean by that? Usually I like to paint in a very loose style where I have a lot of lost and found edges, places of my subject will disappear, and that's not super great for isolating motifs digitally. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's not ideal. Whereas even though this is still a loose painting, notice that all of my outer edges are hard. Sure, I have some loose bleeds and it's not a perfect botanical representation, but with all of those hard edges on the outside, I can easily isolate this flower, remove the background, and thus create stickers or the motif that goes on t-shirts, or make a pattern. Okay, I'm separating that leaf on the side. I painted in a hard line and then just softened it toward the more yellow of the leaves. And then doing more lifting, one of my favorite techniques for adding some shine. I just can't do it right away, so I'll put down a color, I'll go work on some other part of the painting, and then come back to it to lift. And then more veins. I decided I really liked that look. And that's, again, a personal preference, how you put in your veins, whether or not you even add them. But I figured with all of the striping I had going on the petals, not having the veins on the leaves made them look like I wasn't confident. And I am totally confident. Fake it till you make it. All right, so now that the stamen has dried, I'm going in with super dark red, and there are the little bits of pollen on this hibiscus, and so I'm just doing little bitty dots. Little bitty dots. And I love the variation of texture. We got some stringy bits, some stripy bits, some big bold swaths of area, and little pokey dots. You don't have to paint in your signature style all the time. Just enjoy your painting. And here's it finished. So if you liked this video, press that like button so I know to make more like this. And if you want to see more, subscribe because I post videos every Thursday. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!